What's going on, everyone? Fearless Football Forecast here. Week 1 of the NFL preseason has wrapped up, and today we're going to be talking about all the quarterbacks and how they did. Before we do, though, just want to remind everyone to subscribe. Our videos keep getting a bunch of views, but we're not getting the subscriptions, so make sure to smash that subscription button. The first QB that we're going to talk about was the first one to play, CJ Stroud.
Yeah, and if I'm being honest, I had a feeling that he would struggle. Obviously, first time playing with NFL speed, and then you're going up against, one of the greatest defensive minds ever in the NFL. So it really didn't shock me that he didn't play all that well or that he threw that pick. I mean, he only had 4 attempts. It's not like he played a significant amount of time. But I didn't really expect to see him flash in this game, knowing that they were playing the Patriots.
I was watching this game live, and I mean, as far as time goes, he did play for a little bit. He got very lucky. He should have had 2 turnovers. That first interception was absolutely abysmal. He just threw it where there were 2 Patriots and no one, when he should have just taken the guy underneath in the flat. But also on his one rushing attempt, he almost fumbled. They thankfully called him down, but he tossed the ball about 10 yards forward right into the defense's hands on that. He just didn't look composed whatsoever. I think he had like one halfway decent pass, and it was 7 yards down the field. It wasn't that great outside the numbers, but I was expecting him to look the most pro ready out of all the quarterbacks, and he probably looked the worst. Being such a high draft pick. Speaking of the highest draft pick, the first pick overall, Bryce Young didn't really play that much either. We're not going to talk about him. He was 4 for 6 with 21 yards in a drive that didn't really matter in that game. But the next quarterback that we're going to talk about is Anthony Richardson. And based on his stat line and the game score, you might not realize how well he actually played. But watching the game, complete opposite of Stroud, in my opinion, just looked so pro ready. Like when I was watching him, I honestly thought that I was watching like a more composed version of Lamar Jackson. Kind of like he kind of reminded me of Hurts, honestly. With the way he looked in the pocket, he was looking through a lot of his progressions, and he made some good throws. He had a nice 20-yard pass to Michael Pittman. He other than the step back interception, which was a dumb play, can't defend that. He looked good. He had a beautiful pass, like a 35 air yard, 40 overall yard bomb to Pierce, but Pierce had it in his hands and then dropped it when he hit the ground. That would have been a highlight reel play that would have been all over ESPN this entire week. He also had a 20-yard rush that was beautiful. He ended up spinning, cutting outside to the edge, and almost brought it in for a touchdown, but because of holding, they ended up pulling that back. So he really did show signs of his potential, and it's just not proven on the stat line. I mean, officially, he's 7 for 12 with 67 yards and a pick. But it was just bad field position. Otherwise, I think they would have scored 1, maybe 2 touchdowns. There were 2 pretty long drives.
Yeah, and like you said, that composure is a big thing for a guy to be able to come in his first NFL game, even though it's preseason, have any semblance of composure is pretty astounding. And another thing, like you said, that one bad throw he wish he could take back. That's why you let your young guys play in preseason so that he can do this now, and then Shane Steichen can rip them apart on the sidelines and say this is not what we do. But yeah, I'm really, really excited for Richardson. We've talked about it multiple times. And like you said, it was just he had to drive all the way downfield every time. He was horrible field position. So, it didn't show up on the scoreboard, but I thought, for the way the stat line looks, he played much better.
And a guy who appeared to look well during the first portion of his drive was Will Levis. He had some decent throws, definitely throwing good on the outside of the numbers. Just any time that it was a slant, you kind of held your breath because it was so close to getting into a defenseman's hands. His official stat line was 9 for 14 with 85 yards. And then as they were about to get in the red zone, he ended up throwing an interception. But I think that Levis showed that he does have that ability to be something special one day, just probably needs some chiseling away.
Yeah, I mean, he's got the arm to make those, those outside throws, rip it into your guy running across the middle before the safety can come down and make a play. Really, one of the bigger concerns with me, and I did notice that at least once he was just holding. He did this a lot in college. He would just eat sacks, like he wouldn't get the ball and throw it away. And he did. I did see it once in this game. That's really my main concern with him. Is I just feel like, well, two things. One, he knows he has the talent, which he does. So he just kind of trusts himself a little bit too much, I think. And I think that's why you can see him maybe, if he does end up playing this year, throw a decent amount of interceptions, because he's going to have to learn that, those tight windows in college, they're 10 times tighter in the NFL. And then also the just taking sacks, not getting the ball away problem. But he did show the flashes that you would have liked to see.
And a player who maybe didn't have the high draft capital, but shine this weekend was Stetson Bennett. And being a pretty big college football fan, it was to my shock that Bennett fell so far in the draft. I mean, yeah, he's a little bit older and maybe doesn't have the high upside potential that you're looking for to swing with the fences with a lot of picks, but he is very safe and his fundamentals are phenomenal. I think that that's what was really on display here. When watching him, it wasn't just the 191 yards and touchdown that impressed me. What it really impressed me was his short throws and his release. His release was insane. Even times that he was getting under pressure, he stayed composed, just kept whipping out the ball. I'd be shocked to see like his release time stat for that game, because it was very, I mean, not going to say he's going to be Brady because he's a late round quarterback, but it was very Brady-esque in terms of quick release. He made some really difficult throws, threw into some tight windows, pretty much placed the ball wherever you could go on a field. And there were a lot of different routes that he ended up tossing to. I thought he looked great. And even that touchdown was a hell of a throw in a tight window. There were two guys around him and he just zipped it right through the middle. So I'm really excited to see what the Rams do with Stetson Bennett. I think that's going to be an evolution. Like if he keeps playing this well in the preseason, it's not impossible. I mean, I'm wearing a jersey of a guy who had a great preseason and then took over for their quarterback that was getting a lot of money. So it's not out of the realm of possibilities that Stetson Bennett is the starter by the end of the season for the Rams.
Yeah, so like you, I wouldn't say I was necessarily surprised when he slipped, because none of the scouts were really projecting him to go all that high. But when Stetson Bennett was coming in the draft, it was my opinion, quite honestly, that he would be immediately solid in the NFL. I think that at minimum, he's a good backup quarterback. And I think that he really did go into the perfect landing spot with an offensive mind like McVay, who Bennett is obviously smart enough. And like you said, he's got the fundamentals to where you have a coach who knows the insides and outs, is a nerd for football like McVay. If he'll take him under his wing. And I think that if he ever does get the chance to play, you'll see similar stat lines like this. Just think and dunk, knowing when to take that deep shot and when to just say, hey, let me play it safe on this one. I don't think he's a guy who would force anything. I think his football IQ is high, and I think that we saw that where he played the entire game basically, and he looked great.
And I know that you want to talk about one of the new potential backups on your team.
Yeah, so this one, obviously, I'm an Eagles fan, so I watched the entire game, and I was actually really impressed with Mckee. I really didn't know what to expect from him coming into the game. He was 10 for 20, and he had 148 passing yards. So 50% completion percentage, not all that great, but he was just, to me, he was just putting the ball in the right spot consistently. There was a 30 to 40 yard play that got called back that would have boosted that stat line a little bit. But just the eye test to me, he passed. Like he was putting it. So they were playing Tyree Cleveland and Nada, and they're both like bigger body, not much separation guys. And Mckee every time just put it where it needed to be. And it really did. He had one horrible throw to Penny coming out of the backfield in the flat. He just overthrew him by a mile. But I was pretty happy with him. I felt like he had really good ball placement, and as a third string running back or quarterback, I'm sorry, I'd be very happy with him from what I saw in this first game.
You can never go wrong when they do well. And the last quarterback that we're going to talk about, save this one for last, even though it also happened in the first game, because there's a lot of controversy online. Apparently, Lamar Jackson said that the Patriots would be dumb if they didn't make Malik Cunningham their QB1. Now, I think that's a little bit of an overreaction after what he did, but he did look pretty good. He's got a very unique build. He's 6'1", very fast. I liked him a lot in college. I bet Louisville a lot to cover spreads because even though they weren't that great of a program, they were good enough, especially with his ability to end up doing well. So I watched a lot of his tape in college. And Cunningham always really impressed me. So seeing him do well isn't really that shocking to me. He was 3 for 4 with 19 yards, but it was really the 34 rushing yards and his rushing touchdown that really put the shining point on the night. I actually picked him up in Dynasty League, in our main league that we have, just because of the potential. When you come in like that and have a great drive, your only drive of the game, it's not like there were multiple times he was out there. It was just his one singular drive was perfect. And the offense seemed to flow pretty well with him out there. That's when you might see him again, like in week 2. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the second string quarterback or maybe even the starter next week. Because if I'm Belichick and I see how well they did, I would want to see a little bit more from him. And also, let's not forget, when they had Cam Newton, Newton had the most rushing touchdowns of his career that season. So it would be interesting to see what Belichick does with Mac Jones being a headache and Bailey Zappi didn't look that great. I expected more from Zappi in game 1, honestly. It's possible that Cunningham not only makes the roster, but starts as the primary backup this year.
Yeah, so for me, I mean, like you said, it was really just that one drive we got to see from him. It did really flow. It seemed like a perfect drive. And he does have all the physical tools, especially as a runner. Obviously, I think Lamar is being a little bit, not dramatic. I can't think of a good word, but so I'll just use dramatic. I think he's being a little, he's exaggerating a little bit. I don't know if this one drive should be like, oh, yeah, you're definitely starting over Mac Jones. More with him, what it showed me is I'm really excited to see him over the next couple of weeks, to see him get more time in these games, to see him actually drop back 20, 25 times and see if he can be an efficient passer, because I don't really think anybody doubted what he had as a scrambler. So for me, better to have played well than played poorly, but I'm mainly just excited to see where we go with these next 2 games to see how he looks consistently as a passer throughout the games.
Exactly. And that's the thing with all these quarterbacks that we mentioned. Definitely want to see more of Stroud and Young. I think Richardson showed what he needed to show. And Bennett is probably going to keep rolling with the first team for the Rams as we go forward. All right, everyone. Thank you for watching. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, share, and we will catch you all in the next video where we're going to be talking about how the wide receivers did this week in preseason. We'll catch you later. Peace.